So this weekend, we get to see Mark Magsayo defend his WBC featherweight belt against Rey Vargas. We also get to see the return of Brandon Figueroa and blue chip lightweight prospect Frank Martin. With that being said, roll that beautiful bean footage.
I hear him. Down goes Frazier. Down goes Frazier.
Hey, what's up with it, fam? Before we begin anything, don't forget to hit that like button, press follow if you haven't already done so, and if you like anything or have any questions, comments, or concerns about anything, don't hesitate to leave a comment after the video is done. Alright, let's get back to the heart of the subject. We got the WBC featherweight champion Mark Magsayo defending his belt this weekend against Rey Vargas out there at the Alamo Dome in San Antonio. This is going to be a fun fight, folks. I'm pretty excited about it. I was excited about it as soon as I heard the announcement get dropped. Now, as far as Mark Magsayo and Rey Vargas, you've got the classic Freddie Roach school under the Wild Card Gym against the Nacho Beristain school out there at the Romanza Gym, a la Manny Pacquiao and Juan Manuel Marquez, except this time it's some newer fresh blood. We got Mark Magsayo and Rey Vargas. Boxing fans are really going to want to see this fight as it goes down. Now, we've got Mark Magsayo. He's got the heavy punching style. Definitely got the knockout power. Mark Magsayo got his WBC strap from Gary Russell Jr. in a very controversial fight. I thought he won the fight, although a lot of fans were arguing Gary Russell Jr. looked very well because he managed to make it competitive despite only having the use of one of his punching arms. But regardless, a win is a win, even though Gary Russell Jr. did make it very difficult for Mark Magsayo, despite the fact he only had one functioning arm for the fight. Mark Magsayo did win that fight, as ugly as it was. And I'm not exactly sure why it is Gary Russell Jr. and Mark Magsayo aren't running it back. I'm sure there's some politics involved in that, even though if I'm not mistaken, they're both PBC fighters. But either way, Rey Vargas coming up, moving up in weight, competing at featherweight. He's going to be going up against Mark Magsayo. Rey Vargas, his most recent fight, let me go see if I can look this up because the name is escaping me at the moment. Let's see. Oh, right. He fought Leonardo Baez. Very unremarkable fight. He won that in a clear 10-round decision win. Now, Rey Vargas is a very, very disciplined fighter. He stays behind his jab. He's not going to take unnecessary risks. Nacho Beristain has him very well disciplined. He's also got great counterpunching skills. And he's going to definitely be having to put that boxing discipline and ring IQ to the test against kind of a wild, strong power puncher like Mark Magsayo. In a normal situation and matchups like this, I might be inclined to lean with the more technical and fundamentally sound boxer. And Rey Vargas does stay behind his jab religiously. Rey Vargas has no problem moving around the ring, sticking behind that jab, and really offsetting the rhythm of anybody that's in front of him. And Mark Magsayo definitely likes to go for the gusto. So assuming Mark Magsayo doesn't land anything stunningly powerful to rock Rey Vargas, I don't see how Rey Vargas doesn't win this by decision, unfortunately. Mark Magsayo is Filipino. I'm Filipino. I want to root for my dude, but Mark Magsayo had a lot of problems against Gary Russell Jr., although Gary Russell Jr. is definitely a lot more skilled and technical a boxer than, say, a Rey Vargas. I still have to lean in favor of Rey Vargas because regardless, he is still a talented fighter nonetheless. Now, on the undercard to that Mark Magsayo-Rey Vargas fight, we got the return of Westlaco's finest, Brandon Figueroa. He's going to be defending, actually, hold on. He's not defending anything. He lost his, okay. We all remember Brandon Figueroa's last fight, right? He lost it to Cool Boy Steph in a very controversial fight. I was watching the fight, and as I scored it, I thought Brandon Figueroa did enough to win. The judges gave it to Cool Boy Stephen, and the boxing world went up in arms about it. Both sides arguing incessantly about it. They argue about it to this day. Got to honor the fact that Cool Boy Steph was the one that got the decision, folks. It is what it is. On to the next. Now, Brandon Figueroa is going to be fighting a WBC title eliminator against, who's the guy's name? That's how unheralded his opponent is. Sorry, y'all. Let me look it up real quick. Okay, so Brandon Figueroa is going to be returning to the ring in the undercard to the Mark Magsayo fight with Rey Vargas, and Brandon Figueroa is going to be fighting Carlos Castro. Now, this is Brandon Figueroa's first fight in the featherweight division. Now, Brandon Figueroa's last fight was a loss to Cool Boy Steph, a very controversial one. And Carlos Castro's last fight was a loss to Luis Neri. Luis Neri was the guy that lost his strap to Brandon Figueroa. So we've got an interesting chain of events that led to this WBC title eliminator, because whoever wins this fight between Brandon Figueroa and Carlos Castro gets first crack of the winner of Mark Magsayo against Rey Vargas. A lot of moving pieces, folks. A lot of moving pieces. And Carlos Castro, I watched a couple of his fights. He puts it all together very well, but isn't really remarkable in any specific category. He's I'd say a boxer, leaning a little bit towards puncher, but definitely more boxer. And then you got Brandon Figueroa, who's a puncher, if anything, but he's more just a tidal wave of punches and volume coming at you. Just non-stop punches. And it presents a problem to those he fights against. Brandon Figueroa dismantled Luis Neri. Luis Neri actually adjusted to that and actually was more of a technical boxer, fighting on the back foot and using angles in his fight against Carlos Castro. But I don't see Carlos Castro really pulling this off against Brandon Figueroa. But Brandon Figueroa is moving up to another weight division. Will Brandon Figueroa moving up in weight affect his performance against Carlos Castro this Saturday? You tell me. He has shown to be very effective at bantamweight, at the 122-pound weight division. You know, Brandon Figueroa was like an avalanche, but will that cardio output, heavy volume style suit him in the 126-pound division? And he has talked about, possibly facing Navarrete, El Vaquero, and I'm not sure if Brandon Figueroa was quite ready for a task like Navarrete. I don't know if anybody in 126 is ready for Emmanuel Navarrete, but Brandon Figueroa is going to be showing us what he's capable of, and so will Carlos Castro. They're both going to have to really put their heart and their effort and energy out there in this fight, because it is a WBC title eliminator. So they want to put themselves in the best position. But in this fight, also, I'm going to be leaning towards Brandon Figueroa. I think that cardio output is just a problem for anybody. And Carlos Castro, in his last fight, did have a lot of problems with punchers who were coming forward. Even though Luis Neri wasn't exactly totally overwhelming him coming forward, Luis Neri did kind of one-sidedly school him in that last fight. And I would argue, by default, that if Brandon Figueroa could beat Luis Neri by a one-sided affair, then Brandon Figueroa could likely do the same thing against Carlos Castro. Maybe it won't work out that way. Maybe Carlos Castro will pull the rug under Brandon Figueroa's plans to conquer the featherweight division. I'm not so sure of that. All right. The last fight, to me, that's really interesting on that card, we got the return of the Ghost, Frank Martin. Frank Martin's going to be fighting. Okay, so, hold on, I got his name. Frank Martin is going to be fighting on the undercard to the Mark Magsayo Rey Vargas fight. Frank Martin, the Ghost, he's from Indianapolis, but he trains out there with Derek James. He's in the same camp with Errol Spence and Jermell Charlo. Frank Martin is widely considered to be one of the best and hottest blue chip prospects in the lightweight division. He's going to be going up against Ricardo Nunez. Ricardo Nunez of Panama. He hasn't fought too many times outside of his home country, and when he does, he did catch a couple of L's. So it's going to be an uphill battle for Ricardo Nunez, because Frank Martin is the guy. Frank Martin is a very tricky southpaw. He's got power. He throws combinations very well. He's got a high ring IQ. He comes with amateur pedigree. Like it or not, he did beat Virgil Ortiz Jr. in the amateurs to win the 2016 National Golden Gloves. So Frank Martin does come with amateur pedigree, in addition to an undefeated record as a lightweight thus far, training under Derek James. I don't see Ricardo Nunez really doing anything spectacular to derail Frank Martin's upward trajectory. I think Frank Martin is poised to keep winning in the lightweight division, and I do believe Frank Martin will sooner rather than later be contesting for a lightweight strap. I don't know if he's going to fight Devin Haney, because Frank Martin still has a bit of a ways to climb up the rankings in the 4 sanctioning bodies. But hey, I would say it's not impossible. And Frank Martin does have a 5'8" frame. He is a bigger lightweight, so it is quite possible for him to move up to junior welterweight at 140. And Frank Martin's skill set, based on what I've seen so far, could translate very well should he decide to move up in weight class. He's training under Derek James, so you know he's well schooled. Anyways, folks, that's going to finish up my video for this week. This is Hot Boxing Minute. Hit follow if you haven't already done so. Hit that like button. Leave a comment, folks. You're watching the future of YouTube boxing analysis, y'all. Peace.